Okay, welcome back. So I've just got my wet palette. It's not very wet, but should be fine for what we want to do. And again, you can just see the leg that we're working on. Just using a normal standard Games Workshop small airbrush. So I'm just going to pick a segment to paint. Just thinking what I want to do. I might choose this part of the leg here that we just need repainting in here. Not going to see much of this on the final model when the leg goes on, and we might also just glazing a little bit of colour up to this. So you can get in focus. Just glaze up a little bit on this colour here, just to make this a little less harsh. So I'm going to start off with just a base coat of Caliban green. So I'm just going to get some Caliban green on the wet palette. Just a little touch of water. It's really difficult doing this. Never painting with hampered by lots of materials. So we're just going to come in and just base coat just around this area. So just a thin layer Caliban green. Just keeping the paint moving. Might leave a little bit of black around some of the grooves. So this is a bit of the boring side of painting, just blocking in colour. I think the key with this is just to try and keep it really smooth. You're not gonna get good coverage with just one application. You're gonna have to go over it a few times to really block in the colour. It's really important to let it dry adequately between coats as well, just because it will sort of blister the paint, and then you have to repair the work, and that's probably more important when you start to blend in a bit more colour. Okay, so we're now finished now. I've just been blocking in, so we'll get a bit better light over here. So I've just blocked in the colour with some Caliban green in this area. Just giving it a few thin coats, just to make sure it's nice and smooth. Just let it sort of get focus. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. Coming around, you can see the rest of the leg here. Hopefully that's what it's going to all turn out like. So the next thing we'll do now, the next stage, is to try and just map in where some of the highlights are going to be. So I tend to think of some of the light as coming at 45-degree angles, coming down towards the leg. So you can already see here there's some light reflection, a little bit around the top, some light reflection here down the side, and the same on the foot here and around the edges. So and you can almost see if I turn the leg 45 degrees, you can kind of see where the natural light reaction is on the miniature here down this side of the leg. So that's kind of where we're going to want to put our light reflection, kind of here, so you can kind of map it out a little bit. So for this, we've already got some Caliban green down. We're just going to get some warpstone glow. And I'm just going to put a bit of this down. Warpstone glow is a little bit of a kind of a thin coloured paint. It's when you apply it on the other underlying coat, it doesn't have really good saturation. That's a word, saturation. So get my words out. So we already know kind of where that line is, so where we're going to kind of follow. So it's going to kind of follow up through here. So we're just going to kind of start off by just placing in a little bit of warpstone where we think that light's going to be. So just here again, trying to keep everything really nice and smooth. I've already touched the back of that knee pad, so I'm used to painting a lot closer to my face rather than further away. But okay, I'm just going to let that dry for a second. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to tidy up small areas that I've just painted over at the back here. Again, you're not going to see this very much on the model because it's going to be covered quite a bit, but still I like to keep everything really neat and tidy. There's a little mark just there as well, which is annoying me. So just going to get a bit of black and fill that in. It's hard doing videos. You're hampered by all the equipment. So there's a little area just there that I want to touch in. Just kind of neaten that line up. Just repainting the back of that knee pad. Try not to destroy those edge highlights. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the warpstone and just kind of, again, just go up where I think that highlight's going to be, just nicely here. This one can be quite broad because, you know, we're going to highlight into that a little bit more. So I'm quite happy with that. What we're going to do now is mix probably a little bit of kind of 50-50 warpstone, Caliban. I'm just going to pop a bit of this on. So just get a little sort of mix there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go out from that sort of central highlight there. So the way I do this, I can get around the model to come in here, is we're going to, because it's going to a darker colour, we're going to go from the highlight out a little bit, and we're going to kind of just brush out like so. Here we're a bit hampered by the knee pad, so I might just start this side first. Again, just take your time. When you start this, it looks very messy, doesn't look particularly smooth. Just need to keep working it to get that nice transition. So here we're a little bit hampered. What I'm actually going to do is just paint a little stripe alongside that area. So again, it looks a little messy at the moment, just because where we're trying to get some of the blends and stuff right. So what I might do now is go back to a little bit of moot green, not moot green, warpstone glow, just a little bit watered down. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go out to the center of where that highlight is. So we're just going to sort of stroke into the middle of the highlight. Okay, and you just need to be really patient with this and just let each layer dry before you go on to the next one, before you can get like really smooth transition of colour. And as I said before, like it looks pretty messy at the moment, but with time and just keep repeating and keep blending, it will sort of become a lot smoother and a lot nicer. Just going to move the light a little bit. So again, I'm just going to go back to the mix of Caliban and Warpstone. I'm just going to kind of brush again, going from the bright to the dark, and then again the opposite way. Again, really trying to be careful about not touching the other parts of the painted model. This is why I paint everything separately. It's a pain to do a model when it's, especially this level of detail in its entirety. Difficult to angle the brush. So not massively smooth, quite a lot of dark there. So we're going to go back to the kind of watered down moot green, warpstone glow. Keep saying moot green, but it's warpstone glow. And again, we're going to just kind of blend into the middle. So the reason we go into it, into the light colours, because where the tip of the brush leaves the model is where most of the pigment's going to fall. So we want most of that pigment to be in that middle portion. And just let it dry again. Let's see if we can get it in focus. So that's the section here. So it's starting to get a little bit of a blend going on there. It's still a bit rough, still quite sort of dark in the middle. So it just needs lightening up a little bit, I think, just more with Warpstone Glow. Again, make it nice and thin on the palette. So just add a little bit more water just to stop it getting too thick and dry, and also like sort of clumping up a bit on the model. So similar thing, just going to go through again, just kind of glazing to the middle. Again, just let that dry. So it's much brighter now in the middle, but it's a bit rough on the edges. It needs sort of blending more into the Caliban green. So we're going to start blending down now through the layers. So I'm just going to mix some more Caliban green in with that warpstone. And so I'm not going to go from the centre. I'm just going to kind of just do the edges. And again, I'm going away from the highlight. So I'm just going to come down a bit. A little difficult area here because we're just working our way around this little knee pad, whatever it is, unit bolt thing. Again, just going to try and do it this way. I'm hampered by everything. So I'm not a big fan of doing this sideways brushing, but because of the way the knee pad is, I'm going to do that. And I'm actually going to come a little bit from the black into the middle there, just to see if I can smooth that out a little bit. So most of the colour's falling here. So I'm not quite on the bright. And coming a little bit from the dark and kind of meeting in the middle. So I'm going to mix a little bit more Caliban green in there now, just to keep blending that out a little bit. So here it's probably what, 70% Caliban green, and now maybe 10% warpstone glow in there. So it's just going to bring out that sort of final sort of area here. I'm going to come back there and paint in some black later. Just come up here, just blend that in a little bit. And blending like this is very much sort of to-ing and fro-ing, going back and forth, blending bits in, blending back. So you can see now it's starting to blend round, but this bit here is quite rough at the top. Looks like there's maybe a bit of thick paint on the primer or a bit on the model. It's not been very good, or maybe the paint thickened up a little bit. So I just want to make sure everything's extra thin. In terms of paint's watered down quite a lot, and just lots of small layers. Don't want to make that much thicker. So a bit of warpstone glow. So I'm gonna, because it needs to sort of go up, I'm gonna put a little bit of this kind of Caliban mix in. A little touch of water. Can use Lamium medium. So I'm just going to try and sort of glaze this bit out a little bit. So I'm going to start quite far back and just come to that edge, and then come from the light into that area. It's very difficult to do when your iPhone's right in front of your face, but we'll persevere. I'm going to block that colour in. I'm just going to move this slightly out of the way. That's better. Hopefully you can still see okay. And what I'm going to do is just kind of add a bit of glazing up now. It's better, I can move a bit easier. Brush is a bit freer now. Okay, just let that dry. So we have a little look now. Yeah, kind of getting there. It's not as nice as the others, but yeah, it's going to take a bit of time to build that up. We're still just on this first layer. Once you start shading in some more black and a bit more contrast, get some nice edge highlights on it, it's going to start looking a bit better, but it's not bad for the moment. Just need to sort of keep going. So I'm going to just keep really thin warpstone glow, a little bit of Caliban. Don't want it to. Should be quite translucent. You see here on my thumbnail, it's not. It's quite watered down. And I'm just going to kind of come from quite far back and just sort of glaze. Building intensity of colour. So there's a little area here again which I'm not happy with. Just the transition's not very smooth, it's quite dark and quite bright, so I'm just going to try and smooth that out a little bit. So I've got a little darker mix. I'm just going to sort of come out. So that's better. So it's looking quite smooth now. So let's see if we can get a good shot on the camera. Just get it in focus. So what we're going to do is, it's getting a lot smoother now. Oh, keeps going out. Do it slowly. There we go. So you can see that sort of transition to that warpstone. And it goes around to Caliban. So it looks relatively smooth now. It's a few little patches I'm not happy with, but I'm going to just come back and smooth those out a little bit. So just like here. So I'm just going to probably glaze down a little bit. And I might just get a bit of pure Caliban green now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to go into the Caliban, into the shadows. So I'm going to just get the Caliban green here, relatively watered down, sort of this consistency. And I'm just going to start to kind of glaze down a little bit. Hopefully you can see that. Don't work it too much, just get a layer on, let it dry. Just do this a little bit of this top corner here. Again, it's really important here when you're going down the colours that you go away from the highlight. Don't stroke up to the highlight, because when you move your brush from that place, you'll have a big pigment of paint in that area. So you want to sort of sweep it down into the shadow and then move the brush, and then most of the pigment's going to be left down in this shadow area. So I'm just going to, again, this area we're not really going to see, so it's going to be covered by the robe on the model. But you want it all to look good, even if you can't see it. So now I've got literally just like a dot of black on my brush. Probably can't see that very well, but it's just a dot of black paint, a bit of a Baden black. I'm just going to mix this into some of that Caliban green. And I'm just going to go into these shadows a bit. So again, I'm sweeping away. And I'm going to do a bit of this from the other side. I'm not really focused on that back part at the moment. I'm just trying to get this front sort of highlight looking reasonably okay. Again, it's quite difficult to paint with the camera set up, but it's the first time trying this, but we've got to learn. So I'll just bring the camera in. So we're starting to get that transition and coming around. It's a bit dark around the back. So yeah, that contrast will really help with making it look more metallic, or giving it that kind of shiny appearance. Around the back of the, I might just use pure Baden black. Again, really try and focus on keeping it nice and smooth. Again, you might have to go back to and fro a bit. You might want to just glaze up a bit with some more Caliban green. And kind of the more you keep working it and going with it, the smoother it's going to be. So it's a timely process. If you want to paint models quickly, I don't suggest you do this. But if you want a special figure or a competition piece, then this can look really nice. Make something stand out. Just let that dry. So I'm quite happy with that. See if we can show you on the camera. So you can get some nice light on it. So you can see that sort of transition of that warp stone glow. It's quite smooth at the moment. Yeah, it's no harsh transition. Just keep going back and forth, and smoothing it out, glazing it in, maybe like feathering in a little bit of colour. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy with the first laydown of that, so that looks pretty good. I'm reasonably happy. So what we're going to do now is start to highlight up for the colours. So we're going to start adding a bit of moot green to the warpstone glow. So we're going to make a separate pile on this somewhere. Yeah, just do a bit here. So to start off, moot green is quite a well sort of saturated colour. So you don't have to add much of this, so it's quite vibrant. So it's just, I just start off with a really tiny amount on the brush and just add it in to a bit of the sort of warpstone glow. Because it's quite surprising, it doesn't look like a huge transition, but when you paint it on the model, it can be quite abrupt. So again, key to have a fair bit of sort of water on it. It's quite a sort of glazy consistency. We're not going to go too far out. We're going to stay fairly close to the middle of the highlight, and we're just going to kind of pencil in where I want that. Again, when you might start with this, it might look quite harsh and messy. Don't be disheartened. Just need to keep going with it. And don't overwork it, just let it dry. So you can see probably here it looks I can get a bit close to the camera. It looks a bit messy now. That's fine, don't worry about it. You know, it dries quite quickly, and then you're just going to work it in again. So we're going to come in, sweep to the centre where the highlight is, build a bit of that colour. Right. You're on camera there, darling. We'll have to edit that out. So I'm just working the brighter colour into the middle. Again, looks a little harsh at the minute. So I'm just letting that dry for a second. We'll sort of come back. So I'm just going to sort of have a little look at it just to see where it's a bit harsh and where it kind of needs a bit blending in. So it's still a little harsh. Just going to keep trying to sort of blend bits in and smooth it out. This bit up here keeps ending up a bit harsh. Probably because I'm a bit hampered. just going back to touch up a few of these little bits I'm not happy with. So I'm just trying to smooth out this little transition here into that brighter colour. Hopefully you might be able to see that. We'll take a picture at the end. Okay, now what I'm going to do is start to add a little bit more moot green. So a little bit more in this time. I'm going to keep the paint a little thicker. It's obviously watered down a little bit because of the wet palette, but just going to keep it a little bit thicker so I can get a bit sort of, I don't want it to get too runny when I'm trying to sort of transition in this smooth highlight here. So I'm going to go to kind of like a centre area there. I'm going to come the other way. So we just look there and it's starting to get that sort of shiny effect. Still not, 100%, not quite happy with the blend up the top, but we're getting there. So again, might just sort of go in and try to soften it out. A little bit more moot green. This time it's almost going to be just a pure line, rather than kind of just drawing a line, which I sometimes do, but I'm not doing that. With this, we're just going to, you know, just almost just throw in a really slight highlight there. What I might do is do a little bit of glazing up to that. So I'm going to really water this down. It's really thin. And then going to just glaze up to that. Just going from both sides, just let that dry. So this is the model we're painting, just for reference. If you look at my Instagram page, you'll see I've already painted some of this. So we're just doing this leg here. Hopefully get this done next maybe month or so. So again, just going to sort of go back, sort of glaze a bit with the colour. Just doing these final glazes can just really like sort of tying all the blends, make them look a lot smoother, give you a much sort of nicer transition so we can get in focus. Like so. You can see here it looks a lot smoother, nice and shiny panel. Armour, still a few messy little bits here, need clearing up. So just sort of glaze out as well as in to the highlights, out to the shadows. So I'm just not quite happy with this bit. I'm going to just do a little bit there. Yeah, no one's even going to see this, but it's good practice. So I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe a few little spots that we could tidy up, but I'm just going to have a closer inspection. Smooth out this little top bit. There's just one little bit around the side here I'm not quite happy with. But we're getting there. Okay. What I'm going to do quickly now is just sort of edge highlight in that top part, because you'll really see it will kind of stand out a little bit more around that area. So when you're edge highlighting, tend to stick with quite thick paint, don't really water it down, it just splits everywhere and you're trying to get a nice sharp edge. So, and I do it with the edge of the brush, not much paint on there. It's quite difficult to do it in this way, hopefully you can kind of see. I think that's as far around as I'm going to get on this, under the leg. Doesn't matter anyway, you're not going to see it. It's more just for the video. I might just build up that colour a few times, just becomes a bit more vibrant. Getting really neat, smooth edge highlighting makes a big difference to the look. If the edges are not ultra smooth, it won't look metallic. So I'm going to mix a bit of moot green, Warpstone Glow. Again, quite thick, I'm not going to water it down. I want it to sort of just edge really nicely and not sort of split everywhere. Nearly there now. So I'm just going to do a top layer of moot green and then we'll stop there. You can add a little bit more white into the moot green and just glaze a bit more, or just sort of add in a little bit more white and moot green in the where the light's hitting. Probably won't bother on this because they're not going to see it, but I have done that on the other areas of the model, or other areas of the leg that I've painted. You can see it just adds that nice crisp edge, and you can see it and the other parts of the model here, that like really nice edging really just sets it off. So take a bit of time with this, don't rush it. And that's it really. And you just go around, do that all over the edges, and I say maybe highlight into it. So what I'm going to do is see if we can get the light on this a bit better without it falling over. And hopefully we can start to see it a bit better. So you can see that area there. So it's quite, looks okay. Could be a little smoother perhaps, but for, you know, first pass, and particularly on an area we're not going to see, it's not too bad. I'm normally not hampered by all this boom arm and cameras and stuff, so normally getting there a bit easier in paint, but yeah, reasonably happy with that. So not really going to see it anyway, but there you go. Obviously you just need to highlight all around the rest and finish the back of the leg, but that's how you get your armour kind of looking like that. Hopefully you found this helpful. Please check me out at APS Mini Painting, and also I'll be doing some more videos soon. Thanks very much.